The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, but others Elijah, and still others Jeremiah, or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter answered, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not prevail against it. I'll give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, and whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." The Gospel of the Lord. Please be seated. Looks like we have a few guests here today. Heather, you want to turn this up a little? Thank you. Looks like we have a few guests here today. I'd just like to say welcome to you. I know it's a holiday, Canada weekend, right? So a few travelings here and there. Thank you for coming. So today we celebrate the feast, like I said at the beginning of Mass, two princes of the church, Peter and Paul. One head of the church, the other a preacher that brought so many to the faith, especially the Gentiles. But both of them died the same way. They died for the sake of the gospel. They were martyred. And today, a very beautiful gospel reading, like it always is every Sunday, is presented before us. And in that gospel reading, Jesus asked the question, "Who do you say I am?" And that's what I want to reflect on briefly this morning. And so even as you listen to me, can you just think about that? Who is Jesus to you? And don't come up with one of those answers that you find in Scripture. Or personally, who is Jesus to you? And so I'd like to start with a question. What is in a name? Why does Jesus care about the name we give him or the label we give him? Why is that important? Obviously that is. And hopefully you see that in my reflection this morning. What is in a name? Who is Jesus to you? So in scriptures, Jesus had different labels, different titles. Some called him Son of God, like we saw Peter call him today. Some called him Messiah. Some called him the Savior of the world. Some called him Jesus. Some called him Emmanuel. Some called him the rescuer, the healer. But how did they all come about these different titles or labels that they gave Jesus, other than the name his parents gave him? So typically, people get their labels, and it was the same at the case of Jesus. Someone introduces someone else to Jesus. And that person has an encounter with Jesus. Maybe the person's child was dying and Jesus was brought into the scene and Jesus cures the child. And that encounter leaves an impression in the mind of that person. And when that person walks away or Jesus walks away, they live with that impression and then they come to a conclusion that this is who Jesus is. And that's why you couldn't find a common label at the time, a common title for Jesus, because everyone encountered him in different ways and at different times of their lives. And so we all here have hopefully encountered Jesus in different ways. And so from our encounter, who is Jesus to you? And I'm going to talk about that towards the end of my reflection this morning. So that's how people came up with who they thought Jesus was to them. Because of the encounter they had, the experience they had, what they left, the feeling that he left with them because of the encounter they had with him. And that's natural, right? We all label people in different ways. Good labels sometimes, bad labels. You run into someone, you say, what's your name? And he says, my name is John. But by the time you spend time with this person, maybe for the first time, you don't leave the room thinking of his name as John. You leave the room with a label. And someone asks you, you met John. What is he like? You don't say, well, he's like John. No. They say, he's so kind, he's so gentle. Yeah, how did you come about that? Well, I felt so at peace just being around him. And when I talked to him about my problem, the way he went through it, in a very understanding way, non-judgmental, it left me with a very good feeling. How often do we hear that? It left me with a very good feeling. And from that good feeling, you come up with this. He's not just John. He's a human being. He's kind. He's gentle. He's loving. And then we come up with attributes like, she's beautiful. He's cute. He's smart. She's smart. Oh, so intelligent. Now, you don't say that if you've not met the person, right? It's when you've met the person and they say, oh, yeah, that guy is so smart, right? And then right away when you say that, everyone knows you've met the person. But then we also have negative labels, right? Like oh, wow. I couldn't even say to her face, she's fat and ugly. You don't say to their face, of course. Or the ones that we often bring up, oh, no, I will never marry into that family because they're so poor. Oh, they're so poor. But the sad thing about labels, especially the negative ones, is when we hear those labels and we start believing them, the next thing we do is we try to make our self-worth to fit into those labels. Oh, he's from such a poor family. Oh, the mother and the father are separated. And you hear that, what are you saying to yourself? I'm just not good enough. So somehow we try to work our self-worth into the labels that we hear, especially the negative labels that we're given. And that's why, one of the reasons why Jesus came, he came to change all those negative labels, even the positive ones. Because the positive ones are all around externals. For example, she's cute, she's beautiful. Well, she's in her 30s. She's going to be beautiful, right? But what when she's in her 80s? She's probably not going to be beautiful as she was when she was in her 30s. And so Jesus comes and gives us a label that goes deeper than externals. Externals will change. But the kind of label that Jesus gives us doesn't change. It comes from the very foundation of who we are, what God thought of when he created us. And so what does Jesus call you? What label does Jesus give you? Laverne, he says to you this morning, you are my friend. Well, that goes beyond any external, right? He's not saying, Laverne, you are my friend because you're rich or because you're poor or because you're homeless and I just love you because I have to care for you. No, you are my friend. He says, if you do what I tell you. And then you go through scriptures, especially in the Old Testament, one word that label that God often used for his creatures is beloved, not beloved. Beloved, that means I've loved you. It's in the past tense, right? And I continue to. From the first day I set my eyes on you. And what day was the first day God set his eyes on you? When he thought of creating you. And he says, that's never going to change. That's what Jesus came to do, to remove all the external labels that we get and give us what is most important. We're his friends. So let's flip that coin a little. Go back to the question I asked you, because oftentimes we try to avoid questions that get us to go inside ourselves to think. So I want to ask that question as I come to the end of my reflection this morning. Who is Jesus to you? If I were to go around this morning and give you a microphone and say, okay, tell me, without using any of the words in scriptures, who is Jesus from your encounter, your experience? Who is Jesus to you? And if you're not able to, right now, even as you're thinking about it, and you can't come up with an answer, you know why? You have not yet encountered him. And you can come to Mass for 300 years and yet not encounter Jesus. It's possible because there's a blockage, right? It's possible. Those of you who took the rescue program project, you saw that. It's possible to be a Catholic for 80 years and not have had an encounter with Jesus. Now, where's the problem? The problem is not with Jesus because he's seeking that encounter every day. The problem is always us. Remember last 2 years when I did that series on attachment issues? Oftentimes, because our attachment is so dysfunctional, we try to push away from us those who really genuinely love us. And one of them is Jesus. So if you don't have an answer this morning, it's never too late. Go back. Look back at your experience of Jesus and ask, who is he to me? When I was putting my thoughts together, I decided I was going to ask myself that question. And 2 labels came to my mind. 1, he's my friend. He's my friend. And that's who he is. Never judges me, just cares about me. I do all the mess in my life, he comes and he cleanses it up. And he never says this is the last time. He just loves me. He loves me in my weaknesses. And sometimes he loves me in my strengths too, because my strengths are his gifts from him. And then the second label that came to me is, he's my rescuer. How many times in my life I've seen him rescue me. And I'll talk about this towards the end of Mass, when Jacqueline talks about the Chalice project. If Jesus had not rescued me, I would not be standing here before you. He rescued me from living a life without a father and without his support. He showed up when I needed him. So you ask me, who's Jesus to you? He's my friend and he's my rescue. I'm leaving you with that question. Hopefully you can ponder over this all week. Who is Jesus to you? And you know what would be cool? And this is the last thing I want to say this morning. You know the coolest thing that can happen as you go through this reflection, what comes out? Just imagine you ending up with an answer of who Jesus is to you that aligns to the way Jesus sees you. How cool would that be? This is how Jesus sees you, beloved, friend. And then he turns around and asks you, Laverne, who am I to you? And you say to Jesus, you know what you are to me? You're just my friend. How cool would that sound? Just imagine you finish your time here and you appear before God on the last day and Jesus stands there and says, well, this is my home. What are the reasons why I should let you in here? And you say, because Jesus, you're my friend. And he says, oh, wow. He says, I'm excited because you've always been my friend too. Think about it. Who is Jesus to you?